Are you ready to make the most of your oil and gas mineral rights? Welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. Get the knowledge and resources you need to manage your minerals and royalties. Here is your host, Matt Sands.
Today we have Jeff Kummer with MineralTracker on the show to talk about the products and services they offer to the average mineral owner. And the thing that really stood out to me about MineralTracker is their focus on the wide range of mineral owners, and from all the way down to those that own an interest in only one or two wells to those that have an interest in thousands of wells. So their products and services are really tailored to the smaller mineral owner. And interesting thing about Jeff is that he's a petroleum engineer with minerals management background and extensive experience in the oil and gas industry in the Williston Basin. He's a mineral and surface owner himself, and Jeff has comprehensive knowledge of property valuation, oil and gas leases, division orders, and negotiating strategy for the wide variety of agreements necessary for prudent oil and gas development. And Jeff's professional career as a petroleum engineer ranges all the way from working for various operators across the Rockies to actually leading an oil field services company in North Dakota. Jeff also graduated from the Colorado School of Mines, where I went to school, and he received his Bachelor's of Science in Petroleum Engineering. And before we get to today's show, though, I have a quick reminder. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave us an honest rating and review. It really helps us reach other mineral owners the more ratings and reviews we get. So if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, it only takes a minute. We read every one of them and definitely appreciate any feedback you have. And if you have any questions that you'd like to be featured in an upcoming episode, please leave us a comment on our website at mineralrightspodcast.com, or you can send an email to feedback@mineralrightspodcast.com. Thanks again, and now here's Jeff with MineralTracker. Jeff, welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. Thanks for being here. So your company, MineralTracker, uses proprietary algorithms to compare royalty income to revenues predicted. And this helps royalty owners make sure that they're being paid the correct amount for their mineral holdings. So let's start at the beginning. How did you happen to get involved with minerals management and with MineralTracker?
Well, first of all, thank you, Matt, for having me on the show here. And it's really awesome what you guys are doing to help mineral owners out there better understand their asset and what things look like for them. So I got started in the oil and gas industry way back when my father and my grandfather were both in the industry. I grew up in Watford City, North Dakota, and it was always my dream to kind of follow in their footsteps. So I went off and got a degree in petroleum engineering from the Colorado School of Mines back in '06, and worked in Wyoming. Was fortunate enough to come back home and work in North Dakota early on with EOG Resources in 2008 when things were first taking off with Bakken development. And so on, I continued my career in the oil and gas industry. And then a couple of years ago, I was being asked lots of questions because my family, my wife's family, were blessed with mineral rights, and lots of questions come up, and folks have the people that they go to ask those questions, and I just happened to be one of those people for my family. And the light bulb went off as I continued to dive deeper into revenue statements and trying to help people understand, matching division orders, ensuring the interest is correct, etc. I thought, there's not a Main Street business for these people to go to. There's certainly attorneys, accountants, and other type of services like that for people to go and ask questions and try to find solutions and a better understanding of their asset. But I thought, could I leverage the 10 years I had in the oil and gas industry to jump off on my own, open that business, and try to help people? And that was the start of what I say, going from one side of the table to the other and trying to help people understand their mineral asset.
That's awesome. I hear what you're saying about trying to match up the royalty statement with what you expect, and there's not a lot of information out there on how to do that. How did you get into like learning about, how to calculate your net revenue interest or looking at kind of deciphering the check stubs? Was it just through on the job training, so to speak, learning how to do that with your family's minerals, or did you have any specific training with that in, working in the oil and gas industry?
Sure, certainly there's a background knowledge in calculating those things, uh, but taking it a step further and looking at things specifically for my folks' asset, my wife's parents' asset, you learn a lot more. So I would say that by and large, it was on the job training, supplemented by a career in the oil and gas industry. I found out that there was a term for this business, which I didn't know, called minerals management. And so I started researching that, became a member of NARO, the National Association of Royalty Owners, went through their program where they certify you as a minerals manager. There's certainly some good learning that took place there. So yeah, I did as much research as I could and found that there was, people working in this space. By and large, they were far south of North Dakota, mostly in Oklahoma, Texas, areas that have had, oil and gas development for a long, long time. And also researching other technologies to help make this business more efficient and be able to help more people. And that's really, where things started pointing towards the development of MineralTracker.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about Mineral Tracker. What is the mission of the company, and what do you guys do?
Well, my partner and I, Joel Brown, set out on this mission to aid mineral owners. And what we found when we opened up the shop was we were waiting for folks to walk through the door, typically with a box full of paperwork, and say, "I don't know what you're going to do, but do your thing and figure it out." And check my decimal interests, help me understand, make sure I'm getting paid on all of my wells correctly, all the way up to giving me a value of the asset. Appraisal is certainly one of the things that we do, and that's unique to a background in petroleum engineering, reservoir engineering as well. And so as we started helping folks and they started coming through the door, we were finding that the starting point was almost always the same. We had to know something about the asset to answer the questions for these people. And what do you need to know about the asset? You need to know where the land's located, what wells do they have an interest in, and what is that interest. If you have those pieces of information, then you can answer most any question. I liken it to going into a doctor for the first time, and they need to know, your background of health information, right, in order to diagnose a problem or fix something. So it's somewhat similar. And what we found was that that wasn't entirely scalable, right? Our mission is to help mineral owners. Our mission is to help people like my mother to manage their mineral rights. It's as simple as that. And so we wanted to be scalable. We wanted to be able to help as many people as we could. But again, we found that there was a lot of heavy lifting up front. Number one, waiting for people to walk through the door or give us a call, which was certainly happening, but then in order to diagnose their asset. And most often, and this kind of goes to the core of the demographic we're trying to serve, most often what we find, at least in the Williston Basin, is that the majority of mineral owners have a pretty decent idea of their asset, at least where it's located, the wells that are producing, et cetera. And so we want to become experts on their asset, but there's certainly a lot of information that they just have through years and decades of owning the property and knowing what's going on around them. So it took us quite a while to get up to speed with those things. And so that's when we kind of had our second light bulb moment was, can we build something that is accessible via the internet where people could log in, enter their wells, enter their decimal interest for their wells simply by having a most recent batch of revenue statements in front of them. And once those things are entered, they would get put into their portfolio and show them graphs of historic projected revenue, show them future projected revenue, which I want to talk about, and then have access to us to ask questions. So really switching the mindset of let's not wait for somebody to walk through the door with a box full of paperwork. Let's give them a tool that's relatively inexpensive so that they can put their own information in and start, looking at their asset in a new way with the tools that we built into MineralTracker, and then have us there, ready, waiting, and willing to answer questions with most of that information already entered, which makes us more efficient, makes us more scalable, and ultimately helps us to serve more mineral owners, which is our mission.
That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about how you can forecast the future income from wells? Is that something? Because that's something that seems to be unique from an application point of view. Certainly, it's something that we do at Silver Hills Investments, but not something I would say that is maybe always accessible to the average mineral owner. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and let me take even a further step back and build into the answer there. So, um, my background and Joel's background are in industry, working as petroleum engineers. Joel's focus for the most of his early career was in reservoir engineering. He worked for a shop that bought non-op packages, and so he built an extensive database, mostly in the Williston Basin, but throughout the Rockies, of decline curves, so that they could evaluate deals. So he has a very good perspective and database on the wells, what the wells will produce into the future, et cetera. So that's important. Um, when, going back to pre-mineral tracker, as mineral managers, we were looking for a solution. Again, we were trying to think about how can we make this business scalable, help people long term. So we researched other mineral management softwares, technologies that are out there and on the market, and there's certainly some great ones out there. What we found was that we wanted to create something that we felt was more specific to the needs of the majority of mineral owners, at a lower price point than what we saw on the market. And so we wanted to hone in on three things. The first is we wanted to allow a mineral owner, again, by entering their wells and interests, to be able to have a check against the revenue that they're getting every month. So the idea is, because we know their wells and interests, and because we know historical commodity prices, we know what volumes of oil and gas their wells have produced historically because they're reported to the state regulating bodies. We know differentials, taxes, etc. We were able to build a calculation for each one of their wells historically, of what they should have been paid. So they could simply have a check on, this is what my revenue statement said for this month. Let me go check MineralTracker. MineralTracker says, you know, it's this amount. And so they had a way to self audit. We saw that mineral owners were doing one of two things when it came to auditing. The audit process number one was, did the check come this month like it did last month? If the answer is yes, the audit was complete. The second group of mineral owners, again, thinking about the majority of mineral owners that we deal with, was going out to the state website, in the case of North Dakota, the Department of Mineral Resources, and checking volumes for their wells compared to their revenue statements, et cetera. It's fairly time consuming. And so we wanted to automate that process for those people. And then for the group in number one, we wanted to give them that tool inside of MineralTracker. So feature number one we were going after was, can we build something where mineral owners, the larger population, could do a self audit every month for every statement that they receive? And we accomplished that with MineralTracker. The second key feature, which is extremely unique to technology in this space, is that we have decline curves built for all of the wells in the Williston Basin. Again, this product currently is focused on the Williston Basin, and we'll talk about our expansion plans from there. But we have decline curves built, which means that we have trended all wells in the basin to predict what they will make next month, next year, and for the next 30 years through a process of decline curve analysis used by reservoir engineers across industry, from the big oil companies to us in our shop in Watford City. So that's extremely unique. We're projecting based on their wells and interest what their income looks like, what their net barrels of oil and net gas looks like month over month off into the future. So it becomes a really handy tool for planning, projections. That data is updated monthly by Joel and his team, where all of the wells in our database are getting new curves put on them monthly so that as things change, which most certainly they do, we are building new projections for our clients. And then the third key feature, which I already kind of hit on, was this is backed by Joel and I and our team that's now growing to support MineralTracker. So we came at MineralTracker, this technology, from the industry perspective rather than from a tech perspective into the industry, which I suppose anyone could argue one way or the other. Um, it's the approach we took because that was what our background was. I think it's the right approach. I think that we are meeting the needs of the larger population of mineral owners, and then adjusting as we go here, which I'd like to talk about further.
Yeah, I think that this is, like you said, it's definitely something that was unique out there that I saw. So you have the ability for someone to self audit their royalties. So just by signing up for Mineral Tracker and paying for a monthly subscription, but then that support piece you mentioned is that third key piece. Can you talk a little bit about what happens if I'm a mineral owner that maybe I see a discrepancy between my check stub and what you guys are forecasting out for my monthly royalties for that month? What kind of additional services do you offer?
So we call the feature Ask an Expert. Inside of their portfolio, think of it like an online bank account. They log in and they have all this information on their asset. They have a button they can click called Ask an Expert. And simple, box pops up. They're able to type in a question, hit submit, and that question goes to Joel and I and our team. The idea is that, and what we're finding is that Mineral Tracker is really becoming an educational tool. When you start looking at your asset through the lens of MineralTracker, you're seeing it in a different way. You're thinking about it in a different way, whether it be, based on the self audit, most certainly based on the projections. There's questions that are going to come up, and so we're adjusting as we go. We're finding that we're able to answer the questions that are coming our way. We look at it as a good way to give a client additional services. So maybe the question isn't, hey, my revenue looks off this month. Can you help me understand why? We can certainly help with that. Maybe the question is, I'm going to gift some of these minerals. Do you guys do appraisals? Can you help me understand the value so that I can get that taken care of? Maybe the question is, I've always wondered if my decimal interest is correct in these certain wells in this certain spacing unit. How would I go about, you know, clawing into that and running title back to patent, et cetera? Those are things we're helping people with as well. So when it comes to pricing and how we think about this, we think if a person is inside of Mineral Tracker and they ask us a question, we're going to do our best to answer that question. If it takes us, more resources than a simple response back with some information and some back and forth, then we'll say, this is what we think you need to do to answer your question. These are the steps that we would take. This is, how much time that would take, et cetera, and submit a proposal to them for that scope of work. So we really think of Mineral Tracker, from a hub and spoke concept. The hub is Mineral Tracker, and once people are in and see their asset differently, see it through the lens of Mineral Tracker, there's going to be questions that come up now and over time, and so they have access to ask those questions. Again, back to one of the original points is before we got into this space, where do people go to get these questions answered? Well, it's either family members that might have some loose understanding of the oil and gas industry, or it's attorneys again and accountants, et cetera. So we think we could be a kind of a perpetual long-term solution for people, and locking arms with them for the long term through Mineral Tracker.
Yeah, that's excellent. So you have sort of, I guess, support based on the person's needs. So if they're good and they can manage their kind of self auditing, then maybe they occasionally have a question, but then you guys can offer the full service suite of minerals management to these folks, which is good. So let's talk a little bit about your average user. So can you tell me a little bit about your typical client or the average user? Is it individual mineral owners, family offices, investors? Can you talk a bit about that mix?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is a very wide range. Give you some examples here, non-specific. Is I love using my mom as an example, which I think is a fairly common mineral owner in North Dakota with 20 to 50 wells, managing their asset that's been passed down generation to generation. And so that's certainly one side of the spectrum, I would say, and even smaller than that, smaller well count. I don't want to ping on well count too hard. But then the other side of the spectrum is we're serving McKenzie County. So anybody that's dealt with oil and gas development in North Dakota knows that McKenzie County is in the heart of all development. It's where the majority of the oil and gas is coming from. And we went to their board of commissioners at their request to help them with a solution for advisement. And now we're helping the county manage their minerals with MineralTracker. Other types of clients were out meeting with foundations, church groups, I wouldn't necessarily say family offices, but what's been so cool and interesting is that the initial intuition into minerals management has proven so true, and it's actually very surprising how far-reaching the benefits of income from royalties, at least from the Williston Basin, are stretching. We've had one client in the UK. We've had clients from many different states in the US. As our message gets out and the phone is ringing and they're coming to us, it's certainly far-reaching, which again I think goes back to the point of we wanted to develop something and we want to continue to iterate on MineralTracker so that it fits the needs of this broader demographic, which we think is hundreds of thousands of people, rather than build something that's specific for only large shops because of price point or all of the all of the additional features that cause it to be more expensive. We think that we can handle those 3 points that I mentioned. We can handle the needs of the broader demographic at a price point that's less than the cost of a cell phone bill. That's what we've been driving towards and finding success in.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the onboarding process? So once somebody comes to Mineral Tracker, if they want to start a free trial or if they want to jump right in, what are the next steps? What do they need to do to load their wells and their interest in there? Is that something that they do on their own, or is it something they would send information to you guys and you would load it for them? Or can you talk just step by step, sort of how someone would get onboarded?
Sure. I'll talk about the ideal situation and how we had it planned, and then what we're seeing actually happening in a lot of cases. So the ideal situation, and we built this completely with this in mind, knowing that technology is scary to a lot of folks. We needed to build this so that it's extremely straightforward and simple, and I think that we've done that. So the process is go to mineraltracker.com from any browser with an internet connection. Mineraltracker.com. There's a big red button on the site that says sign up for a free trial. We offer a 30-day free trial to anyone signing up. You go through and enter simple contact information, and the only thing that you need to have handy and in front of you to sign up for MineralTracker is your most recent revenue statements. So we're trying to capture all the wells you have an interest in, which are most typically on your most recent revenue statements, and the decimal interest associated with those wells. So through the sign up process, you'll select the operator that's paying you, the oil and gas company that's paying you. You'll see a drop down with the wells that operator or oil company operates, and you select your wells. You enter your decimal interests, which is really a good way to kind of audit decimal interests and wells. Also during the sign up process, we found you hit submit and you're brought into MineralTracker. MineralTracker calculates all of your historic revenue. When you hit submit, it pushes projections from our database to your online portal once you hit submit, and you have access to all the features. So the sign up process can be completely done, by the individual that's signing up. There's no need for sending us anything. There's no need for, some extensive contracts or paperwork, etc. You simply, again, go to a browser, mineraltracker.com, and go through the process, and you're in, and you enter things one time, and you're good to go. So that's the ideal situation, and fully functioning and ready for anybody to jump on right now and check it out if you have wells in North Dakota. What we're seeing more and more is that we're having to help people through the sign up process, which is totally fine. We're doing anything we can, again, to put this in the hands of mineral owners, because what we see over and over and over again is once we have someone's wells and interests loaded into MineralTracker and they see it, they see their wells on a map, their eyes light up, seeing things in a different way from an asset they typically understand pretty well. At least I know where the wells are. I drive by them every day, etc. So our goal is to get people into MineralTracker, and it'll take care of itself. They'll want to use it going forward. So to that point, we're doing everything that we can. I'm traveling around the countryside helping folks get set up. I'm certainly doing a lot of demos online or helping them set up their accounts. We have an office in Watford City, which is convenient for some but not all, where folks can come in and sit down with Joel or I, and we get them set up. And we tell them all you need to have handy is some revenue statements, and we'll get you all set up and on your way, and then ask questions as we go. So there's definitely a personal touch with the business, which certainly doesn't go towards the scalable nature that we trying to get with MineralTracker, but we're happy to help as long as we have the capacity to help people get signed up.
Excellent. And I think I saw on the website that, or the monthly subscription includes unlimited number of wells. Is that for new users through the end of the year? Is that going to change going forward, or is there, I guess, what are your plans for that?
Well, we have an exciting 2019 planned. So talk just quickly about the history of MineralTracker. We went live with the product on September 1st of 2018. So not so far in the past. And we've been running like crazy here, just trying to keep up with the demand and where the app is going. So in 2019, we have some big plans that are solely based on the feedback from our users to date, things that we've thought of, again, going to our mission of helping as many people as we possibly can. And so I'll hit on a couple of those things and then go back to pricing. So in 2019, we plan to expand into more states, starting with Montana, and then moving south, Wyoming, Colorado. There are some wells in South Dakota as well, to kind of keep our regional focus in our area of expertise and where we're used to working. But we've had those requests. Can you add specifically Montana, because it's all Williston Basin, and folks with larger assets typically have wells in both Montana and North Dakota. So we plan to expand into multiple states. The other thing that we are planning to do is offer another product, or another, I guess, tier of product inside of MineralTracker, which we're looking to reduce the price point again and limit some features so that folks have an option. Maybe you don't want the full suite with projections, etc. Maybe you just want the self audit. We've heard that from our users. We're planning to reduce the price significantly to offer that to those folks, to again broaden the base of who this is applicable to, based on the price point and features. Currently, and going forward in 2019, the full suite of MineralTracker, being self-audit, projections, mapping, document storage, which we haven't talked about, and Ask an Expert, is $99 per month, and that's up to 100 wells. So once we get over 100 wells, then it's $1 per well per month. And the reason for that is that our team is updating curves on all of the wells. So as the well count increases, so does, the resources it takes to keep everything up to date. And we think that, again, the 100 well count fits that. Certainly that's what we're seeing from our user base now. 80 plus percent of them are under that 100 well count. So we're trying to fit the full spectrum there. And as we move forward and try to introduce this, maybe somebody only wants self audit, well, that's simpler for us. It causes us less resources. And so we plan to offer a product that is significantly cheaper than $99 a month, price to be determined, but I'd say with a capital S, significantly cheaper, again, to try to get this in the hands of everybody, even potentially with a free option up to a certain amount of wells, because there's people out there that have, maybe they have a house in town, and they own the minerals under it, so they have 4 wells or something. We want to give this in the hands of them as well. We want this to be a tool that anybody, if you're getting paid a monthly royalty check, MineralTracker can work for you. If you have 1 well, if you have 4,000 wells, which we have a couple of clients that are in the non-op space that are, on that range. So we're fitting the needs and everywhere in between. And the last thing that we plan to do is bring about a mobile app, which we're working on currently, so that people can have that handy app on their phone and check their monthly revenue that way. So we have a really big year planned. I don't see any reason why we don't execute on all of the things that I just mentioned. And hopefully we're talking here at the end of 2019 and we've grown our user base beyond expectations, which our expectations and goals are high, but there's a lot of people that are finding use in what we're bringing to market here.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you talk a little bit about future plans beyond? Do you guys have any plans to expand this into other basins? And sort of, if so, what do you think the timing might be for that?
I think that in early 2019, we'll be able to grab Montana. I think by the end of 2019, my goal and hope is that we have Wyoming and Colorado in there as well. Joel and I have worked on the DJ, the Powder. I've spent time in the Jonah and Southwest Wyoming, so we're very familiar with the different plays across. It's the Rocky Mountain states, as I term them. What I mentioned, and so we're cautious about it, as you can maybe kind of tell in my voice. We're cautious because we want to be knowledgeable so that we can help people. There's no doubt that we can bring the self audit feature, we can bring mapping, we can bring document storage, we can bring projections because we've worked all of these basins. So we can bring the full functionality of MineralTracker. The only thing that I'm cautious about is the Ask an Expert feature, because I truly want to be, a quote unquote expert when folks are asking questions, especially if they're specific to the basin or the play or the geology, the formation, whatever it might be. We want to be knowledgeable enough to offer that. And I think we are across the Rockies. Do we ever expand, um, into Oklahoma, Texas, et cetera? It's certainly possible, but right now that's kind of our focus.
Got it. Yeah, let me know when you guys go live in Wyoming and Colorado. I definitely have a need there. So, it sounds like you guys have some exciting plans coming up. Are there any other features or anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't already covered?
No, I'd just like to hammer home, there's no product, at least that I have seen in my research, that fits this very large bandwidth of mineral owners, which I believe, when I'm, talking bandwidth, from the people that have 1 or 2 wells to the people that have, 5,000 or whatever the number might be. I don't think that there's a product that fits the needs on the lower end of that band, which I think is where the majority of the minerals are. At least that's what we're seeing. That's what, our research tells us, and just generally being, in the middle of this for years and years and years now. Um, that's where I think that's where the largest demographic is, and what we're targeting. So we want to bring a product again that fits the whole bandwidth, but we're really focused on helping the most people that we possibly can with this technology. And so that's what we're really excited about. Um, Being on, this podcast, And we're talking to anybody that'll listen to us. We're presenting to, estate planning councils. We're presenting to foundations. We're doing lunch and learns at our office. In 2019, we plan to do kind of a city by city, town by town tour across North Dakota, anyways, to do, kind of town halls or a forum where people can come in. We do a presentation about the industry, talk past, present, and future, at least through our lens, and then integrate MineralTracker into that because it's geared towards mineral owners that might not hear that independent perspective from somebody. Usually you get that kind of information from either the oil and gas companies, which are somewhat isolated in what they share, or from people that maybe don't know as much about what they're talking about as they should. And so we think that that's valuable. So we have big plans. We're going to be busy in 2019 and really giving this all we got. We believe in the product. 2 years ago, if you would have asked me, as I was sitting on the other side of the table, if I would have be looking towards, rolling out a technology to help mass amounts of mineral owners, it definitely wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something that we were planning, but sticking with our mission of helping the most people that we can, starting with people like my mother, to understand their asset and have a tool to manage that for this generation and generations into the future. We're just taking this one day at a time, 1 month at a time, completely self-funded. And so we control our destiny, and it's based on getting the word out through, again, things like this. Thank you. And talking to people and being out there. So we're excited. Don't know exactly what it all turns into or where we go with it, but um, there's no reason to slow down as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it sounds super exciting. And it's great to talk to a fellow Colorado School of Mines alum. So thanks, Jeff. Where can our listeners go to learn more about MineralTracker, and how can people reach you?
Sure. The easiest way is probably through our website, MineralTracker.com. You have a contact information there. You can email us, info@MineralTracker.com. That'll go direct to myself and Joel. All of these forms will actually, we're a small shop. So info@MineralTracker.com is our email. Our toll free is 833-842-2924. 833-842-2924. They can find us if they happen to be in or around Watford City, North Dakota. They can find us in town there. And certainly follow us on Facebook. We have a pretty good social media presence, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, at MineralTracker. So find us via search on MineralTracker on social media platforms as well. Reach out to us, tell us what you think. We're always interested to have feedback for sure.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again for your time, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks so much for listening to the Mineral Rights Podcast with your host, Matt Sands. Don't forget to subscribe and share at MineralRightsPodcast.com. The Mineral Rights Podcast should not be construed as investment, legal, or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy.